Okay, I'm going to make a plate. I've got about 3 1/4 pounds of little loafer's clay. It shrinks a little bit more than the brown clays, just a little bit. So, but this, I already made one. This is another one, and it was about 9.5 inches diameter face before the rim, and that's going to shrink to about 8.5 inches, which is a little small for a dinner plate, but that's the way it's going to go. Okay, so, but I do make the bones a little bit thick. So, put the clay on there, flat center, wet center. You don't have to center low and flat to make a plate. You can if you want, but I think it's easier just to center normally. And then do the plate opening, which I'm going to show you. But if you want, after you get it close to center, you could squish it down a little flatter. What you do want is for the sides to be sloped out like this, with this being the widest point, like a hill. That seems a little shaky, but we'll do the best we can. There we go. And I'm going to open. And when you're making a plate, you want to leave the floor a little bit thicker than you would a cylinder, because when you run the wire under it, you can lose more clay because it's so wide, and the wire doesn't stay taut. It's hard to keep the wire taut as it goes all the way through. So we make the bottoms a little thicker, and then it's nice to have a trimmed floor with a space underneath. Okay, so checking that. The earlier one I made too thin. That's a bit thin, so I'll open it a little thicker than that. You see that? Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to open, but not very far. And a little thicker than where I went down to. Okay, so the whole idea of making a plate is you have to move the base out. Okay, and you can't just pull this over, keep pulling this until this flops over. That's not going to work. It's going to be weak and probably break off where you bent it. So instead, we have to compress all the clay down so that the base spreads out along the back. So to do that, I'm going to have my left hand on the inside wall, holding on to that. My right hand is going to connect to my left pointer finger. My longest finger is touching the floor but not pushing down. My other fingers are connected to that wall, inside wall, and then these fingers are bent over the top. Okay, so it's in there, the ridge is in there like that, the rim. My other finger is going to connect directly to my 2 pointer fingers are going to connect together so there's no gap. My other finger is going to spread out against the sponge. And this is how I control where the clay goes. As I push down, I'm holding the clay in everywhere. The only place I'm letting it go out is at the base. Okay, so putting a lot of pressure, this holds it from going inwards. Okay, and this is spreading out against the floor, against the bat, I mean. Okay, so you can alternate between compressing the wall down and opening the floor further, like so, until you get as wide as you want. Leave a little bit of clay at the end for a rim. Or you can do them both at the same time once you get a little better at this. Okay, so same hand position, pushing down, 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 the floor base moves out, and then start pulling out at the same time. They're going out together. Now, you can pause if you need water, ease off, or if you're starting to get an overhang over here, you don't ever want that to be any wide. The widest point should always be what's against the bat, okay? I think I went a little too thick, and this isn't going to be as big as my other one. Let me try to open that a little further first and see. See where my plate face is. So I pushed down a little bit here to make that a little thinner. I got this measure from the other plate. Okay, so that's about right there. Press that down a little bit. Alright, so now I need to make this flat. Okay, so the way I pulled it open, I kind of a little bit low in the center, humped in the middle here, and low at the sides again. So I want to fill this in over here and over here. Okay, so when you're doing this, I can see it right now because it's so extreme, but if you can't see how it is, get it wet and run your hands over it, and you can feel every bump and hump. So you can easily feel that this is humped here, hump, and low there. And in between all that, there's a few ridges too. So I'm not worried that much about ridges. Those are coming from the pressure here from my fingers. I'm going to smooth those out later. Right now I want an overall flatness, which means I have to move some clay out to the edge. Okay, so that's getting better. Feel it again. Okay, so now I've got smaller humps, and then it's a little humped right in the middle, actually. That's unusual. So work on that a little bit more. So this is just like compressing the floor of your cylinder. Notice that I'm using a couple fingers pushing down with the sponge, and my elbows are down and my hands are connected. So I get extra stability when I do that. A little water, feel the plate face. That's pretty close now to flat. Feels good. Okay, so now I'll try to minimize these ridges. Doing this again, but just a little less pressure. Feel it again. Pretty good. Okay, I like that. Now, after compressing with the sponge, got it pretty flat, but I'm going to go in with the rubber rib. Okay, so I like the small rubber rib or a big rubber rib, as long as it fits in between the edge of the plate and the center without crossing. Okay, so if this were smaller and this didn't fit in that space, you couldn't use it. It would be a pretty small plate though. So don't cross the center, but moving the tip of that rubber rib into the center, back and forth, a little more compression, a little more pressure here, making it nice and flat and smooth. For a dinner plate, you want it smooth. Get some of that scraping off, that's okay. Now, I think I did a pretty good job here, and it might be smooth enough. Might be sort of finished. But you might do this and still have some high points and low points that you can't get rid of. That's when you want to switch to a wooden rib. Now I have this wooden rib that has a nice long flat edge, but again it has to fit in between here. If it didn't fit, I need to find a smaller one. This one's actually longer this way, but it's shorter this way, so I could use one of these kind, the short edge, to go back and forth if I had a smaller plate. It doesn't need to be that fast. So a light pass over this will show me if I have any low spots or high spots, because the wooden rib sort of scrapes off a layer of slip and it dries the plate face out, right? So you would see if there are any low spots, you would see them looking a little bit wet. This clay is very soft, so I don't want to put too much pressure on it. But you can see I don't have any low spots, no wet looking spots now. Alright? Now I'm going to switch over to pulling the walls. Before I do, real quick, I'm going to check my measurement again, make sure this matches the other plate. Oh, it seems a little bigger. Let's check that measurement over here. Oh, that seems okay. Maybe I'll push it in a little bit. It's actually not too hard to make the plate a little smaller. Or if you just failed to leave enough clay at the rim, you can make it narrower. Just sort of push in there at the base, push everything in. There you go, it's a little narrower. And double check that. Oh, see, I went a little too small. Alright, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to push it out a little bit when I do this pull. Alright, so I'm going to pull the walls. I use a wooden knife for my indent. It's easier to get in there. Just pushing out that plate face just a teeny bit while I do the pull. And pulling up and towards me. Indent. I didn't feel like the rim needed compressing that time. Squeeze up and move towards me. Okay, might only need 2 pulls there. I think I want it a little taller to match the other one. So do that once more. Try to get the clay out of the bottom and not in the walls too much more this time. So big squeeze at the bottom. Nothing towards me. Now notice I didn't try to make this lay out like a plate yet. I'm going to do that last. Okay, I don't want to lay that rim out until the last thing I do, because I don't want the force to, that's pretty good. Alright. So, now I'm going to go back in with the rubber rib to smooth and clean up the plate face. I haven't in a while. Get that water. I should have actually sponged it out. Get that water out first. That looks good. Scrape the rib off. Okay, rubber ribbing that plate face, make it look good. And then I'm going to push that curve into the corner of the plate, right? That nice curve makes a nice curve in that corner. And then I want that rim a little rounder. Good. All right. Flattening out the rim. Just pushing down on it with the rib. Lay it out a little bit. That's it. Keep that wheel moving slow at this point, and then I'm sort of go in with the sponge and round that rim. I don't like the flat edges. Pick that back up just a little bit, like I did the last one. I think they're going to match pretty good. Okay, so all done with that. Keeping the plate moving slow because I don't want to scare that rim into falling over. Finish up with a wooden knife indent. I'm going to slow the wheel even more. Get my wire. Cleaning my wire. Alright. With the wheel spinning slowly. Just like cutting anything else. When I'm halfway through, I'm all the way through. Kind of bumped the rim there with my finger, but I think I didn't really hurt it. Okay, that's it. Don't put a plate in front of a fan, because the fan will dry this part, and the plastic back keeps the bottom from drying. And because this dries and shrinks, it'll crack the plate. So never put a plate in front of the fan. Just let it dry in the room. Okay, that's it.